The Lantern Man. It was just past midnight when Daniel's car broke down on the forgotten road, cutting through Blackthorn Forest. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died, leaving him stranded beneath a sky bruised with clouds. His phone had no signal, of course, and the nearest town was 10 miles back. Daniel had heard the stories about Blackthorn. People talked about strange lights drifting through the trees, whispers that followed you even after you'd left the forest. But he never believed any of that nonsense. Not until that night. As Daniel popped the hood and fiddled uselessly with the engine, a soft glow appeared between the trees. He squinted. It was a lantern. Someone was walking along the tree line, the light swinging gently, as if the figure were gliding rather than walking. Relief washed over him. Maybe a local who could help. He grabbed his flashlight and called out, "Hey! Over here!" The lantern paused. For a moment, there was silence, heavy and expectant. Then, the figure stepped into the clearing. The man, or what Daniel assumed was a man, was tall and thin, wrapped in a long, dark coat. The lantern he held was old-fashioned, its glass cracked, but it burned with a steady orange flame. Daniel took a few steps forward. "Car broke down. Any chance you can help?" The lantern man said nothing. He tilted his head as if studying Daniel, the light from the lantern casting long shadows across his face. But there was something wrong. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes, they reflected the lantern light like an animal's. "Look," Daniel said, forcing a laugh. "If you can't help, just point me toward the nearest..." The lantern man raised a bony finger and pointed into the forest. Daniel turned to look. Beyond the tree line, several more lanterns flickered to life, bobbing between the trees. There were others, watching, waiting. A cold sweat broke over Daniel's skin. I'm good here," he stammered, backing toward his car. "Thanks, though." The lantern man lowered his arm, and then, without warning, the forest filled with whispers. They were soft at first, like leaves scraping against each other, but they grew louder. Voices layered over voices, all murmuring nonsense words, except for one phrase that repeated over and over. "Join the light." Daniel jumped into his car, slammed the door, and locked it. Not that locks would help. He flicked the ignition. Nothing. Dead as before. When he looked up, the lantern man was standing right outside his window, the lantern pressed to the glass. Daniel couldn't see his face anymore, only the flame. "Leave me alone!" Daniel shouted. The whisper stopped. Then, the lantern man blew out the lantern. Darkness swallowed everything. Daniel sat in pitch black, barely breathing. His flashlight sputtered and died, and the air in the car grew thick and heavy. He couldn't see anything beyond the windshield. No forest, no sky, no lantern man. And then his passenger door clicked open. Daniel didn't move. He didn't dare. Slowly, as if someone were sitting down beside him, the seat beside him sank. He felt the weight, smelled something old and earthy, like damp soil and rusted metal. A voice, cold and dry, whispered in his ear, "Join the light!" Daniel screamed and threw himself out of the car, sprinting into the forest. He didn't care where he went as long as it was away. Branches tore at his clothes. Roots snagged his ankles. But behind him, more lanterns lit up, chasing him deeper into the woods. Figures emerged from the dark, silent and pale, their empty eyes glowing faintly in the lantern light. Daniel tripped and hit the ground hard. As he rolled over, expecting to be surrounded, he realized something strange. He was alone. No lanterns, no figures. Just the silent, moonlit forest. He sat up, heart pounding. Had he imagined it? Ahead of him stood an old, crumbling house, the kind you'd see in a ghost story. Its windows were dark, but something about it felt safe, or safer than the forest. Daniel ran to the porch and pounded on the door. "Hello? Please, I need help." The door creaked open. Inside, the house was cold and smelled of damp wood and mildew. Furniture lay in broken heaps. and old photographs stared down at him from cracked frames. But at least there were no lanterns. Then, in the center of the living room, Daniel saw it. A lantern resting on a small table, lit and glowing. This flame was blue, not orange. Next to it sat a journal. Daniel, shaking, opened the cover. To whoever finds this, do not follow the lights. They are not people. They are not alive. But they want you to be part of them. If you see the lantern man, run. Do not let him blow out the light. Daniel closed the journal. The blue flame flickered, and as it did, he heard the whispers again. Not from the forest this time, but from within the house. Join the light. Daniel spun around. The lantern man stood in the doorway. He didn't need his lantern anymore, because Daniel had already found his own.